Hi everyone, Mars here, the golf professional at Southwick Park Golf Club. This week's little video is about the teeing ground and teeing off with your driver. For me, hitting the driver is always risk and reward, and obviously the better you get, that you're slightly increasing your odds. I think at the start of your golf, teeing off with the driver is much more risk and very little reward sometimes, but you will get there. I just wanted to talk to you a few things about actually the teeing ground itself, how to try and use the space wisely, and some of your thoughts around about actually pulling the trigger and hitting the shot. But let's start right at the beginning with tee height. Being in the pro shop nearly all my life, you do know that the pink Castle tee is the #1 seller by a long way. And to be honest with you, it is about the right height for nearly everyone. Not all drivers have the same size, but the largest configuration of modern drivers are very similar in depth of head. And that pink tee sits it up pretty good height, to be fair. Me personally, I think as you get better as well, you want to slightly alter that height dependent on wind and the type of shape you want to hit. We'll get to that in a second. But teed up nice and high with half the ball above the top edge of the crown, and sometimes slightly higher to the toe for most drivers gives you the furthest type shot. That's where it's most springy. So let's just talk about the tee ground. Just before you even, you've got to a hole and you've had a look at it and you think, where does this hole go? I'm on the 16th tee and it goes from, the ideal shot's a little draw. So there's a couple of things to think about here. Is don't just come and plonk down in the center. I do see that as the big mistake if people just go right into the middle of the tee. You may find that your best shot from this hole will be right over by this block. It does change the angle. I mean, you wouldn't want to come over here. You're making that much worse. So the other thing is you can obviously come back these 2 club lengths and find a better bit of ground. So you can see this bit of tee that's been here probably for the weekend is quite chewed up because everyone's defaulted to a middle tee position. So have a little look round and see if there's a flatter area or a better bit that suits your eye. I mean, for me, I've got a nice little patch around here. That's going to be a good place to put the tee in. And then no matter how long you've played for, I'm having another look at that once I've teed it up. I'm going to stick my club behind and make sure it's the right height. Now you can look about executing your shot. And not everyone's going to be at a ball shape, but there's 2 parts to this hole in particular. And you always want to say to yourself, where don't I want to go? Right, so #1 is out of bounds. That's reload, another 3 off the tee. There is some room to the right for the shorter hitters, but eventually you can get to those sort of stand of tree. So I would think more about, it's a shot down the right hand side and maybe you can draw it a little bit. So let's just talk about the potential to shape the shot a little bit. So if I'm going to try and draw this, I'm going to point my club as squarely down the line I want to finish on as I can. So that's going to be, down the middle of the fairway, the right hand side of the green if I'm being clever. And my setup position now is going to be slightly closed. So that's my feet are going to be slightly to the right of that target line. So always imagine 2 railroad tracks. This track's pointing at my target. And this line for a normal shot, a good standard shot would be square, parallel to my hitting line. But on this instance, I'm going to try and shape it a little bit. And I'm going to aim slightly to the right with my feet. And my swing path now is going to be slightly more into out. And hopefully with a slightly closing face, because if I keep the face open or square, I'm going to hit it to the right because I've done that. So you have to commit to these shots, which I'm going to get to in a second. So I'm just going to knock this one off and see if I can shape this one round the corner a little bit more than I would want to. Okay, it's good. Right, so little touch of draw. Start down the right hand side. That's really nice, actually, in the middle of the fairway. Right, another hole might need me to fade it. And if I wanted to hit the fade, I've always got to tee my driver down low. You're a special man if you can hit a fade off of a high tee. So I've teed this right down. It's only probably off the ground, I'm going to say 1 centimetre. And for the right type of shot gives me a nice little squeezy fade. For example, this is my shot always down 13, because then I can fade it away from the out of bounds, and teeing it down low obviously runs it a little bit. So tee down low, slightly open with my stance this time. Gives you a nice low cut. and that it is in quiet control. It's not a slice. So that's this little part about the teeing ground and where to put your tee. Now, this last part is definitely the key for most people, and it's the freedom with their driver. My number one thing I think I see is people trying to steer the shot, trying to almost guide it down the fairway. It rarely works. You're always quite often going to slice it by doing that. You must be free, and you must release that club and turn through correctly. If you don't, you will always hit the slice with the driver. I think it's not the number one technical cause, but I think it's the number one mental cause of hitting bad tee shots, because think, oh, I've got to get the old driver down the fairway now, and it's all this, you know, and it doesn't work. So be free, have a nice loose practice swing, get yourself turned through to face the target. Make sure you don't, let's hit a couple of bad ones while we're here. That tension that builds through your, because you've got a really difficult tee shot on 16 here, and that tension and tightness will ruin a lot of people. And quite often that's the one where you'll sit back on it as well and get very tight and stiff, and that's left. That was a nice ball as well. So that part of the freedom of it, I think for most people, is helped in the practice swing. Take a breath, and then try and step up and feel that same feeling as you've just felt in the practice swing. And don't worry about all the problems down there. You've lined yourself up correctly. Just relax and complete your swing. And it'll be much easier. Now there's lots more we can talk about. Driver setup and the type of driver you can use. I mean, I've got a lot of demo drivers you can take. Sometimes the demo drivers don't go out quite as much as actually I want them to. People think, oh, I'll take this £500 driver out. It's realistically the only way you're going to ever really want it and buy it is by trying it properly. And then I can give you some advice around shaft and loft. If it's your first driver, most people nearly always need a little bit more loft, just to make it slightly easier. Obviously, the more loft, the less side spin. So yeah, a very quick little video on teeing off, but hopefully there's a couple of little parts in there that might help you. But my number one thing is consistency with tee height, careful with aim. Here's a little one. This isn't Southwick, this is all golf clubs. Just while I think about it, this tee, luckily, is cut actually really nicely aligned. Most people will naturally grid up to a tee. Now there are a few tees here and tees all over the golf club where the alignment of the tee is not where you want to go, and you must discipline yourself around your pre-shot routine to pick your target line and a point to swing over and those things that might help you. So number one, when you get on that tee, have a quick look where it points, especially if you're playing somewhere else that you're not familiar with. So yeah, thanks for watching. Greens maintenance week this week, so lots of sandy greens. What greenkeeper would ruin a good green? A really good one. So our really good one we'll be doing is maintenance, get some air in, get some life back into the subsoil, and just to get this timing right for when the weather perks up, which he undoubtedly hopefully will do. See you next week.